Hey, greetings one and all. How you doing, man? Chris Courtney here, new Pragmatic, in for a little bit of pre-show, feedback loop coming up, and got a busy morning. Got a busy morning. Got a few things in here we need to take a look at. Hope things are going well where you're at. Just just over here checking out Discord before we get the ball rolling. We got Charlie, Katie, and Chelsea in here this morning, so that's good. Um, Lots of interesting stories populating the Discord channel. Um, you know what's interesting is the concept of how our cities are being reshaped through this whole crisis. Well, just a little open discussion while we're waiting on Discord to fire. There's a Fast Company article this morning out talking about how aerial vehicles and drones can help us rethink um, just the whole way we get around. A lot of the trips that we make are to get something that could in fact be flipped around and brought to us. And if we think about all of the times where you need a loaf of bread or you need to go pick up some garbage bags, all those little trips that you make sometimes, you know, those are those are packages that you could have avoided going out at all. And when you think about like the restructuring of let's say 20% of all trips are redesigned to instead of being a pull where I have to go out and get it and bring it back, it becomes a push where I say bring it to me with like an app and something brings it to my door. Um, that begins to really radically remake the places where we live, and I think that it's a really interesting exercise to kind of put yourself through. Um, in that, as we're doing research, how many opportunities are there out there where we're hearing what the user is saying, but we're really capturing it and saying, okay, well, how could we do the same thing with less activity on their side? Um, and those opportunities are out there. It's just like the drone. It's like are we able to see those opportunities? Um, and if we are, how can we best act on them? So that's pretty cool. Wanted to throw that out there. Um, so that said, lots of that's just one of the things that's that are out there in the that's in the Around Design channel on Discord. Give it a look. It's really it's really interesting. A lot of the stories that are in there, some of them were very technical focused. Modern CSS techniques to improve legibility, which I'm down. I'll probably be reading that one. Um, Not so much on the 6 different ways to drink delicious coffee every morning. Not really. I'm not a coffee guy. Um, so anyway, that said, let's move on because the CouchBot has fired, and that means that and oddly enough, CouchBot is now updated and reporting total views, and apparently we're nearly at 22,000 views. Congratulations, everybody! And it says our average stream is 51 minutes every time we go. First time I'm seeing these numbers, which is it's really interesting. CouchBot is a tool that's continually being worked on. We're a Patreon subscriber of that tool. We like to support the fellow makers in the community. CouchBot's very very helpful for us. I don't have to go into YouTube and grab the link and post it back over in Discord. I get to just talk to you and wait for CouchBot to do its thing. So anyway, with all that said, let's get this underway. If I could just, yeah, there I am. There I be. Okay. Greetings, one and all. Chris Courtney here, new Pragmatic. It's time for the feedback loop. So good to have you along. Today we've got Chelsea, we've got Katie, we've got Charlie, all in here, all with different projects. So I'm just going to share my screen, and we're going to get this underway. So right off the bat, I want to start over here with Chelsea. Okay, so Chelsea's like a lot of students that are in the program. She's applying for jobs while she's also doing a lot of the UX work. So she just had the affinity mapping exercise, and now she's working on personas. And by the way, if you check out the Discord channel, you'll see that I am now clipping out the best of feedback loop. There's a little thing called looped that we're releasing, and super excited about that because there's a lot of moments of feedback loop that are really applicable to the entire program. The affinity mapping breakdown we did with Chelsea on, I guess it was Monday, was one of those. And I've got 48 weeks of content that we're going to be going through and editing. So be on the lookout for more loot. That said, back to Chelsea. She had this question yesterday about her LinkedIn. And prior to yesterday, none of these sections existed. Okay? So all she had was the top part, which is important. You know, content curator at Google, content specialist at Google, Tenga, but there were no descriptions. And what I was telling Chelsea, I will share with you as well. When you apply for positions, you have to understand that what the role was at your company might take on a different look at another company. We get into this fight all the time. What is a UX designer? What are the jobs of a UX designer? What is a UI designer? And what you'll find is that in the job postings, everybody has a slightly different idea of what that is. So what is a content curator? What is a content specialist? What's the difference? They both say at Google. And yet, they're probably a little different. Okay? So here, I partner with international cross-functional teams for the launch of the first curated audio news experience for Google Assistant users. That's pretty cool. Like, I didn't know you had done any audio work for Google Assistant prior to you adding this detail to the description. Successes included designing help documentation and training materials for a global team of 20, as well as spearheading a team workflow to produce 1,000 audio segments for 150K DAU. What's interesting about that is now I see you as somebody who it's documentation training materials is like, for a lot of people, it's like they don't want to do it, but you've done it. Okay. If you really enjoy doing it, it's highly profitable because people are always looking for somebody who will do that job that the others don't want to do. So other people just don't get excited about it. It doesn't make it a bad job. It just means that other people don't get excited about it. But now I see you've got this experience with audio, with Google Assistant, with documentation training. This is all great material, and it wasn't there before. It's a great addition. This role is the same as above. I joined the news on the assistant experimental project on a temporary contract basis. Fortunately, due to the project's success, I was offered a full-time position as a vendor after 7 months. Okay, that's great. I am wondering if I could know a little bit more about what was the success? What did you? Oh, okay. Sorry. It says the role is the same as above. Okay, so I should read that closer. The role is the same as above. I would almost change this to similar to the content curator position. Um, let's see, success. Similar to the role above. This position focused on uh, creating audio news experiences for Google Assistant users. I would just add a little bit so that they don't have to do the work, do a little bit of the work for them. Like similar to the role above, this was focused on that. I joined, and I think that's all you got to do to get that there. Um, so here, and you know, so Tenga, I got it the voice and tone of the KVUE news on social media and its website. I also architected and managed the content strategy of KVUE's Amazon Alexa skill. This is telling me you have a lot of audio assistant um, audio assistant experience, and that's where I'm wondering. Okay, sorry, the about us here. I'm a digital content specialist with 6 years of experience and a growing passion for all things research and design. I think you're a digital content specialist with six years of experience. Um, I would mention on voice activated platforms. I think that is that's like a real key thing here. Like you have an experience that's kind of hard to find. There's lots of people that have digital content experience, but you have this specific experience with Google Assistant, with Alexa. I would get that up there, and I would say voice activated platforms, um, and then like period. Um, uh, I'm constantly growing with a passion for all things research and design. So just like a little bit of something up there, okay? I think just a tad, and you're there. So this is really digital content specialist in transition. I think this is all great. I like it. I think you're doing great. All right. Let's go over here to Katie. So Katie's in here. She has updated her. Um, okay, she's updated her cover letter, and we're back to talking to Miss Ferguson. The purpose of design is all about delighting users and creating meaningful experiences. I can't think of a better environment to learn in than one that is built around hand curated experiences and discovery. I love that Blueboard wants to light a fire inside of employees, all by saying thank you in a meaningful way. Blueboard is the ideal workplace for me in many ways, and I believe my recent experiences have prepared me for future success. Um, okay, so I think there's some wordsmithing here. It's definitely more Bluebird focused. Okay, and that's what we were looking for. Um, I think that you know I almost would move the third sentence up. Dear Mrs. Ferguson, I love that Bluebird wants to light a fire inside of employees um, by saying thank you in meaningful ways. Um, or you could say, um, dear Mrs. Ferguson, the purpose of design is all about delighting users, and I see that in action at Bluebird. Period. I love that Bluebird wants to. I love that Bluebird states that it wants to light a fire inside of employees by saying thank you in a meaningful way. I think employees all is where I was tripping. But I think that you can tweak that first piece, mention Bluebird, come back, or I see Blue board. Sorry about that. I think you mention it in the first sentence, you bring that third sentence up after that, and then you could say, I can't think of a better environment to learn, to continue learning in, to continue my journey. I think I'd say I can't think of a better environment to continue my journey than one that is handcrafted up, building these great experiences. So, like, and then come back with Blueboard is an ideal workplace, and I believe my recent experiences have prepared me to make the leap, or prepared me for future success. I think, again, it's all there. I think it needs some reordering, but it's all there, and I definitely want to make sure that you are like getting this out. So I'd like make a final adjustment and ship it. I would knock that down. I was just kind of reading through this. I always, by the way, I always get this always rubs me wrong. Please do not hesitate to contact me. It screams, please do not contact me. And I'd like to encourage you. Feel free to contact me at, like, please do not hesitate to. There's a bunch of negatives in there, and I don't want any negatives posted with contacting me. So, like, I'd like just carve that out. Feel free to contact me at. And then thank you in advance for your time and consideration. I like having that on its own line because it's a thank you, and I want them to see you saying thank you. So I'm just going to leave that like that. But slight adjustment at the bottom, more of adjustment at the top, but again, the content's all there. Okay? All right, let's move on. Finally, we've got, okay, this is Charlie. And Charlie is working on a redesign. And first of all, I got to give Charlie credit, okay? If we go over and look at Charlie's portfolio right now, I want you to understand where Charlie is coming from, because I think that it is, I think it's important to understand, like, the leap that Charlie's attempting to make here. Charlie is currently got this. Here's Pandora as it currently stands in his portfolio, and we're going to work on the homepage. It's coming, all right? It's coming. But when we look at his portfolio, like, right now, this is just a slideshow, okay? It's like literally a slideshow using just a standard Google slideshow template, all right? So Charlie's basically extracting and leveling this up, okay? But yesterday, Charlie, I talked specifically to you about, like, what can we do to level this experience up as we're coming out of the box, okay? So I've duplicated this over, and I wanted to talk about a couple of things typographically, but I want to circle back because I want to first focus on just the structure of this as we have it right now. So you've got an introduction, you got problem solution, insights, your role. So here's the process, discovery, initial research, user stories, user flows. These flows are all traveling like straight down, and I think they're taking up a lot of space. Like I'm concerned with, like, the amount of space that they're taking up. I would rather, we'll come back to them, okay? But I do think they're taking up a lot of space. Baseline user testing. User immediately had to pause music. User took a surprising amount. Okay. Competitive analysis. Spotify. So these are your competitors. Again, that's a lot of space. Personas. and user stories. So like I'm a stickler for these sorts of experiences where we're just taking the user persona that, I mean, it's basically just an image, and you know, it's what happens with this is when it gets down on the mobile, this this becomes a postage stamp, okay, and I don't want that for you. So we'll come back to that in a minute. Content strategy, new homepage, like this I like. I'm always a fan of this where we go from sketch to final design. I think that's, being able to show that arc is important. Um, shows how you can carry on your wayward son. Um, design inspiration. I might label these, but we can talk about that in a bit. So here's the style guide. I'm guessing that is Pandora's logo. I'm not completely sure. Avenir, graphic elements, hi-fi mockups. So this is where, like, we can't see enough of it right now. They're all pretty small, and so prototype usability, key takeaways, final prototype. Okay, so let's come back up now that we have a better sense of what you have in here. I see a pretty strong grid in use all the way down. That's fine. We need to rethink this top and the spacing up here so that we can get this moving. All right. First things first, I would trying to get in here and understand. Maybe things are locked. Let me get in here and see what we got here. Everything is discovery and research. It does look like you've gone through and made some components, which is nice. Oh, it's all locked down here. Okay, well, maybe we'll just get rid of these. Yeah, all right. So definitely, I need to be able to get in here and work with a few things here. Okay. I do think it's fine to lock this stuff. I mean, I get it. All right, so first things first, let's turn your grid back on. All right, so first thing I want to do is I want to like bring these in and kind of establish, okay, this is the grid that I'm working with. I also want to give this some more space to run. One thing that I've got here is I got this big blue bar up here, and then I've got these home screens. I might drop this down, and I might actually even like extend these to a point that we give it a little bit of design difference here that allows it to interact with that top screen. So these are almost like dropping out, just to give it a little bit of style. Right now it's fine. It's just not. It's just kind of flat. Another thing you could do is, you could just, I guess you could leave it flat like that, and just have them all kind of coming from behind. If you want it to, just trying to get this to pop a little. But you've got Pandora home screen design. Another consideration is centering versus left aligned. If you were to left align it, I guess I got to do this too. Oh, there it is. Never mind. So we'll do this so that we could center it or left align it. Yeah, okay. So once we have this in play, I think you can lose the introduction because this becomes the introduction, right? And now that you've got that underway, we can begin to kind of, and I'm just gonna futz with this just for alignment purposes. We can begin to talk about this in terms of, okay, Pandora is 60. Okay, that's pretty big. That's pretty big. These are 40, but they're still pretty big. And I don't necessarily know if these labels need that much. So what I'm going to suggest that we do is take these down to like 30. Okay, and what I'm really trying to do here is I'm trying to encourage you to drop these down to take a more appropriate size for the job that they're doing. And I'm trying to, okay, I'm going to ungroup these. I'm going to let's detach. Again, this is a copy of your work, not the work. That's why I always try to drag it over and kind of if I'm going to do anything, I like to do it away from the master that you've been working on. Let's take a look at this. This is 20. This is 18. Why regular? It's interesting. It feels so dense. For the intro, I might go. So this is 24. I might go 28. Just to give it a little more of an intro feel. And then, I know that we've talked about Playfair Display. If we look at it regular, does that help this? Is the difference too great? Is it not match? Like you've got Montserrat here. What happens if we just go with Montserrat? So the problem, if we do this, we don't even need that. We could do 24. And suddenly this begins to feel a lot more familiar to the design that you've got. I just don't know if the Playfair is working in this design right now. It seems like immediately by changing this to Montserrat and simplifying it, that we can get these labels to do something effective that they were kind of fighting against us just a moment ago. And I shrank it down to 20. Was it? Oh, wait, it's 24. Okay, so 24. And now, I don't think we need the colons because they're, the colons there because it's indicating a stop, but there is no stop necessary because it's a new line. So right away, if we compare this to where we were just a second ago, having this content together, you get to get rid of the introduction if you just pair this information together. Having the screens closer together allows a stronger usage of the grid to kick in, because now these elements, if we can, yeah. Now instead of having two different widths, actually 3 different widths, 4 different widths, because this was centered, this was really wide, this was also centered but not really on alignment, and then this was kind of that in between. What we've actually done is we've simplified this down into 2 widths from 4. So this grid aligns with this grid aligns with what's coming up below. Okay? Simplification of the grid is a deceptive superpower. Okay? The fewer modifications you can use to your grid, the better off you're going to be. It's going to be simpler to code. It's going to be easier to read. So just keep that in the back of your head. Do I really need to break the grid? At most, on any case study, I think you might have 3 different widths. And I would say there's a wide, a narrow, and a super wide. Like a super wide is not a mobile home, but a picture that goes like edge to edge. Like a super wide design would be something that guy, and you had one in the original design for design reads, where the picture goes edge to edge. That's a legit width, okay? But that's generally reserved for images or illustrations, not for obviously text. I really believe that if you were to go through and change this Montserrat to, or change these labels to Montserrat and adjust the grid, you would find that this is going to hold together a lot better than it was just a minute ago. It's just a more consistent design, specifically when you get down in these areas like the process. Like that's I love the fact that you're picking that up, like that you're using it for home screen redesign, and then here's the process. But if this immediately becomes, if we highlight this and this becomes, Montserrat, and we go 24, now suddenly there's like a hierarchy that isn't fighting here, because this is definitely fighting. Okay, all of it, like, just look at the simplification between the two. Like, it starts right here. Like, this is the top. It's clearly the top now. Where over here, not really certain. Like, these feel like they're still commanding a lot of attention. So I think just bringing the labels down, tightening up the image, maybe pairing this information together, because it is the introduction for that. And then, I do think there's some work to do as we get further down. Specifically, I'm wondering if there really is a need to have these shadowed. Like all this text is shadowed, and it's in a box. And the user stories, they all say "I want." Who wants? Is this as a user? Is this as an admin? And I could even see like doing something along the lines of, as a user, I want ... and then like having these underneath. The question there is, okay, are we introducing a new label? I don't know. Do you have to call them user? Do you have to call it out as specifically as user stories? I guess you could, but if we change this to Montserrat, and again we get into this, drop shadow. Is it necessary? Sometimes we want to do things like drop shadows just because we're bored with the design, but it's not because it's making a particular impact. But I do think, it's like the space here. Like, there shouldn't be a space there. And the initial research, I think that, explaining where these numbers came from would be helpful. Initial research, I, talked to 15 people at the park. I sent out a survey, and that survey generated X number of responses. As you probably know, we don't typically use surveys in that regard here in the program, but that doesn't mean that I'm poo-pooing the usage of surveys. The one thing I will say is this: if you're going to use a box, like give this content some room to breathe. Um, like it's immediately better if you just measure that in rather than having this kind. It goes for all these boxes, and what happens. Let's kind of look at this. Let's kind of take a second and look at this box idea. All right. First of all, I'm glad you've got it on a grid. Second of all, I'm not sure why you would need a drop shadow. I'm just going to hide it for a second. I'm not going to delete it. And again, this is the content off to the side. It's not the. I'm not changing Charlie's original. I'm just kind of riffing here with Charlie. So if we change this to the left, and we said, okay, well, this is super big for the page. Like, if Pandora was at 60. Now I've got 55. I've got the number here at 72 with a drop shadow in a box. Like, what would happen if I said, okay, you're 48? And this is 18. That's fine. What would happen if we said, okay, that box thing that we've got, you know what? I'm going to drop it to 20%. And actually, I'm going to come through and I'm going to hide. I'm going to hide the grid. So, because I know you're on a grid. I don't necessarily need it at this point. Let's come down. Now, right away, this should begin to feel different. It's less intense. Okay? Especially when you compare it to where you were just a second ago. Like, we're getting more focused on the content and less focused on like blowing things out with size. Do you have to use it? Now the question is, okay, so do I need it in bold? What if I went light? Would that work? What would happen if, and I'm, just for these purposes, I'm just going to move all this content over to the side. What would happen if, instead of these boxes, I just brought this down and I said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to put this up in the corner and I'm going to get rid of the box, but I'll make it a line. And this line will ride at the bottom of each of these. And, instead of, what I'll do is I'm just going to adjust all of these really quickly. Oh, yeah, I forgot. So this is 48. I could go through and make a shape or make a style. I'm not going to at this point. I'm just going to adjust these. And I'm curious. Yeah, okay. So that's what I needed to do. But if we bring these down, and let's go through and let's drop off the drop shadow. Just hide it. Don't have to get rid of it. You can just hide it. And you can even kind of keep that, I'm going to get rid of the drop. There's lots of drop shadows here. Lots of drop shadows. And I'm not against the drop shadow entirely. But I just want to, I always want to look at options. I don't want to back myself into like having to, oh, that's regular, I need it light. And this is 48, not 40. Okay. And now let's take a look at this box. Okay. So this is the same design, same content. Which one feels most appropriate? There's not a right answer. There's only like what feels most appropriate to you. You could go really minimalist. Actually, really minimalist would just be to lose these bottom lines altogether. But you can peel this back, all right? It doesn't have to be pounding you over the head. You can keep the box. But if you keep the box, I definitely want to make sure that we're giving this content space to live in, like we have over here. Does it have to be centered? Like, these are all the questions that I have around presentations like this. And I think that, coming to a decision on what you really need to do here, like, how loud does it really need to be? And one of the if there's anything I hope that you've picked up here on this, Charlie, is that I'm not reordering things. I'm not changing the structure. I'm just taking the volume and cranking it down. And the big reason I'm doing that is so when I do get the visuals, they pop. Okay? I want the visuals to pop off the screen. And right now, over here, I'm getting a whole lot of type. And the type is loud by comparison. So, I'm going to leave both of these options in there. It's the same content, it's the same basic structure, but one option, the typography is significantly louder than in the other option, and you can kind of begin to see what the differences would be if you just rethought like those boxes. Okay? So I'm going to leave this here for you. This should give you an idea of how to move down. Take the tone of it down a notch. How you decide to take that tone down is up to you. I mean, I could still come through and do something with, like, I'll just come through and like, so Chris, what other ways, say if you said, hey Chris, I really like this, I really did like Playfair display. How could I keep that? Okay, well, why don't we take 1 second. Let's highlight it. All right, so what if we went regular? We went all caps. We said, okay, that's baseline user testing. Instead of 40, I'm going to do 20. I'm going to go black. And then I'm going to say, 30. Is there anything to just using spacing that will get you there? And maybe not 30, maybe 50. Baseline user testing. Is there like a little bit of line work that we add with it? And again, I'm riffing. I'm trying to give Charlie some different options to consider, because I don't like being a head case about, oh, it has to be my way. It's like I don't really like it. This isn't my portfolio. It's Charlie's portfolio, or it's Charlie's case study. And what if we said this is 30 instead? It's something like that instead of this, right? And down here, you're going to have an issue anyway, because you've got strengths, weaknesses, and they're all the same size. You're going to need those levels, and right now we don't have them. And honestly, this is there's a lot of space in here. I think that we could come back. I'm just going to show you a design off to the side that I would consider using here. I would go logo. So logo. Strengths. Weaknesses. And then it would go logo, strength, weaknesses. Logo, strengths, weaknesses. That's how I would redesign that. And I realize that you're like, oh, well, wait, these are wider. Okay. So I would probably redesign this Pandora logo to like flip it around. Like, so you're going to have to do a little bit of design work with each of these. And maybe if that's the case, instead of saying, okay, it's a little square logo, create a version of each of them that's a little wider, and maybe this becomes a little narrower, and that's going to have to be like a custom shape that you handle, okay? Because it, like, this design doesn't appear anywhere else in the platform. All right. So, Charlie, I'm going to leave that with you. There's a whole lot to think about there. We jumped through about half of it. I mean, there's some design work down here, and I think mostly this is like labels. You know, it's like figuring out labels. Most of the design is already there. So if you can figure out this top part where you've got most of your text decision making being done, I think you'll be fine. All right? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this edition of the Feedback Loop, provided that I can find my way back to my screen. Hey, there I am. I hope this was helpful for all of you, and I look forward to chatting with each of you later today or later this week. And yeah, all right, fantastic. All right, take care.